themes, the theme here seems to be the embrace of enemies and the abandonment of allies. Talk about all of what you've seen over the past weekend.
Joe, I'd have the same basic organizing theme that what we're seeing around the world is that it's hard to be America's friend and ally, and that it's easier to be a strong and sometimes belligerent adversary like China. There's a lively debate taking on among people I respect about just how to think about President Trump's China trip. Some people, prominent commentators, Fareed Zakaria of CNN is one, Graham Allison, who teaches at the Harvard Kennedy School, is another, who say that this visit produced, because Trump was so deferential, flattering, produced a degree of stability and cooperation in the relationship that's necessary. There's another group, and I would put myself in that camp, that would say, no, this really ratified China's rise. She's rise to a position of real parity with the United States, what people call a G2, the two great superpowers, and it also ratified America's decline. Trump came back with very little of what was expected from this trip. He didn't get as many Boeing plane sales even. He didn't get as many agricultural goodies. And he also managed to put Taiwan in play. I don't think it's too much to say that he's capitulated on the Taiwan question. There's still ambiguous language. But Taiwan's in play. It's a negotiating chip. You just hear in his voice that he's getting ready to deal. As you look around the map, the Trump administration's actions in Europe, to me, are incomprehensible. At a time when Europe is threatened in a way it hasn't been for decades by Russian expansionist power. Russians are fighting real sabotage campaigns in Europe right now. And this is the time that Donald Trump decides he's going to reduce American support for Germany. And I think even more disturbing, to pull back these troops from Poland, a frontline state, which is right there on the Russian border, feeling very menaced by Russia. So it's a time when the basic principle that we often talk about on this show, the strength the United States has in having so many strong allies around the world, is, to my mind, being ignored. The debate over China is the biggest issue of our lifetimes, figuring out the right relationship between the United States and China. And this trip was a way station in a very long story. But you'd have to say at the end of that visit, the scorecard shows Xi getting what he wanted and Trump generally not getting what he wanted. And that should be concerning for people who want a strong America that can deter a rising China rather than simply accede to its power.
Michael Weiss, I certainly respect people on both sides trying to figure out exactly, sort through why the president was so deferential to President Xi. And they can have that debate, but if you just take a couple of steps back, you see a very clear pattern, as David said, the president being terrible to our closest historic allies, the same allies that helped us take down the Soviet Union, and embracing actually people who consider the collapse of the Soviet Union the greatest geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century. Again, let me just say it again. While the president's saying, I don't know, maybe we don't give Taiwan weapons because that's a lot of money. At the same time he's doing that, he's abandoning Germany. He's abandoning Poland, sending very clear messages to Vladimir Putin, just like he did when he supported Orban in a failing effort. I mean, and Ukraine, this is a crazy thing. Like, the president is going all in with the losing side. It was one thing when they went around lying, and I talked about this repeatedly. They have lied repeatedly for years, saying that Ukraine is about to collapse. They've continued the lying, and we've called out their lying repeatedly, saying, oh, they'll have the Donbass next month. Oh, Russia's about to overrun them. They need it. You've heard the lies. It has been constant. It has been continual. And even now that they know that they're on the losing side, they're upping the ante by abandoning Germany, by abandoning Poland, the country Putin would go to right after Ukraine. And And then you have Taiwan hearing this as well. It has been, I suppose, a head-spinning weekend for American allies, except for the fact they've seen all too much of this over the past decade from Donald Trump.
I spent the weekend talking to Polish government officials, Joe, and they were absolutely flabbergasted by this decision. You know, they were making a concerted play, a lobbying effort, if you like, to try and get those 5,000 troops that we're pulling out of Germany onto Polish soil. And then it turns out these 4,000 troops that were meant to be rotated in are now canceled. You know, the Poles make a big deal about trying to cater to what Bridge Colby, the head of policy planning at DoD, calls NATO 3.0. Strong, stalwart allies that not only do their fair share, but go above and beyond, right? Poland is approaching 5% spending on GDP. It's going to become one of the most militarized countries in Europe. It has secure borders. It ticks all the boxes that MAGA pretends to want to care about with respect to the transatlantic relationship. And the best part, according to the Poles, is they pay for the infrastructure of hosting U.S. troops, which is something not even Germany does, right? Fuel costs for American garrisons in Poland, they pay 50% of. So they're actually footing the bill for this. They cannot understand for the life of them why the United States would want to pull troops away when everyone in Europe is preparing for the next confrontation with Russia, right? I mean, you talk about Ukraine over the weekend, the biggest drone bombardment of Moscow, I think, in a year's time. You know, we keep hearing that Zelensky has no cards. The Ukrainians are faded. It's inevitable. They're going to lose Donbass. They're going to lose this war. Tulsi Gabbard goes on about how Russia has the upper hand. What did this demonstrate over the weekend? It demonstrated that there, but for the grace of Volodymyr Zelensky, Putin's big parade, his Victory Day parade in Red Square, was allowed to take place. This is what the Ukrainians can now do. And these drones that they're using are domestically sourced. They're domestically manufactured at scale, which also highlights or telegraphs to the West they are the center of gravity for all military technological innovation. We are at a state now, and I keep telling you this on the show because it's very important, I think, we need Ukraine more than they need us. Right? We share intelligence with them for the purposes of striking Russian energy infrastructure, military targets, but they share intelligence back with us. You know, they recruit Russian assets. They've been doing this since 2014. They speak the language fluently. They have a massive penetration inside Russian society and inside all levers of or all elements of the Russian state. We're going to need them. They're already a de facto NATO ally. You know, we just don't realize it yet, or some of us in the U.S. government don't realize it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Ukraine has the best fighting force in all of Europe. David Petraeus says you want to see the future of warfare. It's happening right now in Ukraine. Had the Secretary of Army say the same thing. They're doing extraordinary things in Ukraine, and still Donald Trump continues to do everything he can by abandoning our allies in Germany, abandoning our allies in Poland, constantly fighting NATO, abandoning the Ukrainians, continually abandoning the Ukrainians. Anything to provide aid and comfort to Vladimir Putin, and none of it working.